Let's read our text today, Matthew chapter 8, verse 23. When he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him. And behold, there rose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with the waves, but he was asleep. And his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he said unto them, Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and he rebuked the winds and the seas, and there was a great calm. But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? Years ago, there was a song that went something like this. Rock the boat. Don't tip the boat over. Rock the boat. Don't rock the boat, baby. Today my sermon is Don't Rock the Boat, Baby. I just want you to know this is a small boat, but when you bring it in the sanctuary, it becomes very large. The boat is here to obviously to parallel the service. The sermon will be here this week and next week. The life is like a boat ride. In a boat, you can float along. You can lean back and put on your sunglasses and just enjoy the ride. Amen? Isn't life like that sometimes? You just got the warmth of the sun and the gentle breeze coming across, and you just enjoy it. You know, I actually can see you guys better with sunglasses. So that's how a boat ride can be at times. Nothing can be more peaceful than being out on the lake and just floating. Well, in a boat, you can also sink. Life can become dangerous. Some days, that sunny sky can turn to black clouds. And no matter how big your boat is, those warm, gentle breezes can turn into a hurricane. Everybody say amen. Amen. In a boat, it's amazing. We used to go up, as I said last week, to Lake Erie. And as far as the eye could see, all you see was water. How peaceful. We used to go all the way up into the Canadian waters. There wasn't no fish up there. All the fish are in the American waters. Everybody knows that. But we go up there anyways. And it was just so peaceful. And I could see all around. But you know what I couldn't see? I couldn't see what's under the boat. Sometimes there was things under the boat that might surprise you. And the smaller the boat, the more dangerous it is. As the title of the sermon is, Don't Rock the Boat. Have you ever been on a canoe and someone stands up? What happens? You say, don't rock the boat, baby. Don't tip it over. I tell you, my friends, life is like a boat ride. In our story that we looked at last week, this week, and next week, we find the disciples with Jesus on a boat. Could it get any sweeter? With the Lord, on the boat, floating to the other side. You can find a lot of things on a boat. I have here. Why would you have a life vest on the boat? Think about it. If you have an engine or a sail, why would you have an oar on a boat? I'm starting to uncover some things, aren't I? Why would you have a fire extinguisher on a boat? I don't think the disciples had a fire extinguisher, do you? Sometimes things don't go as smooth as we want. Storms should be expected when you're on the boat. We look at this story, as I said last week, this story is brought in 3 of the Gospels. Matthew 8:24, it says, "And behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with waves." Mark, same story, chapter 4, verse 37. "And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat upon the ship, so that it was now" what? Full. Luke 8:23. "And there came a storm of wind on the lake, and they were filled with water and were in jeopardy." Notice the statements. "And behold, there arose," there came down. I think it's fair to say that as the disciples were on that boat, suddenly a storm came. Storms should be expected when you're in the boat. Some storms are sort of slow and they approach slowly. We can sort of see them. We can feel the coolness of the breeze before the storm actually gets there, can't we? Some storms seem like they're just going to brush by or be real small storms, but then suddenly we find ourselves in the midst of a really horrible storm. And sometimes we're just oblivious. We have no idea. And bam, quickly, the storm hits us and it's enormous. See, my friends, I believe that life is like riding in a boat. Storms should be expected. Life is equivalent to boat riding. You may need to prepare for a storm. Life is like a journey. You need to expect the storms. It's when we get caught off guard and something happens and we wasn't ready for it. It's when a shocking event happens to us or someone we love or a situation and we're not ready for it. That is the most difficult of all. So I want you to understand some storms. There are different preparations for different types of storms. If we look at just the natural storms, the snowstorm, you won't take an umbrella out in a snowstorm with you. A rainstorm, you wouldn't take a shovel to the rainstorm. A hurricane. There's different types of storms and there's different sizes of storms. The Bible says that the disciples were in a rainstorm in the lake, in a boat, with high winds, and the waves were filling the boat up. The Bible tells us in Matthew chapter 8, it says it's a great tempest. Mark 4:37 says, a great storm of wind. Luke 8:23, a storm of wind again. I tell you, my friends, storms are a reality of life. Can I have an amen? Amen. We watch the weather. We see a hurricane come out of the Gulf. We've seen several of those, have we not? We see them go across Florida and go up the eastern coast of America. We watch the weather and they say that's a Category 4 or that's a Category 3. So today what I've done for your ease is I have categorized our storms with the weatherman. Category 1. It's a Category 1 storm. Winds are about 74 mile an hour, up to 95. And the weatherman tells me that we should expect some minor damage. Fold up your lawn chairs, right? You know, just take care of some things. Because this is only a Category 1. I believe the Bible tells us about Category 1. It's a normal storm of life. That's in Matthew chapter 5, verse 45. Listen to what Jesus says. He says, he's talking about God. He said, He sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. We simply live in a world that has storms. It's a natural part of life. Not only do I, as an adult, need to understand that there are natural storms, but as I have children and grandchildren, I need to tell them, you're going to go out in this big world one of these days, young people, and the world's not going to part for you. Storms. You got to understand, you got to be prepared for the storms. We get wet like everybody else in the storms. We have daily trials like everybody else. We have bills. Everybody say amen. We have marriages. Everybody say ouch. We have kids. Everybody say amen. And all the kids, we got parents. Come on, kids. Amen. Okay, here we go. Good. We get flat tires, we get broken cars, we pay taxes, we got insurance bills, and we have emotions. Amen? I can get happy, I can get sad, all in one day. Amen? Depression, loneliness, these are storms. These are storms. When you face these storms, don't think the world is against you. You're just getting in a category 1. Now, fortunate for you and fortunate for our meal, there's 5 categories. We're only covering 4. See, I'm dropping one category for you. All right? But listen, you got to understand that there are storms in life, and that's normal. Category 1, winds 74 to 95. That's a normal storm. Category 2. Category 2 storms get a little more serious. Winds 96 to 110 mile an hour. And they say, expect extensive damage. Growing, I call these growing storms. This is brought to you for your development. In other words, no pain, no what? Gain. But don't hurt, you're not going to grow. But don't hurt, you're not going to change. Give me an amen. If you're mad, well, get over it. Hallelujah, huh? Get over it. Maybe you're supposed to get mad so you can see what problem you got in your life. Maybe your roots need to be pulled up a little bit because you're too dug in. Can I have an amen? That's for all of us, and me too. I'm not just preaching to you. Growing storms. I find growing storms in our text. Matthew 8:23 says, and behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea. Why do I call this the growing storm? It's because Jesus told him to go to the storm. Jesus led his disciples into the storm, and Jesus is using this earthly event to teach heavenly principles. He's trying to make them better. Now here's an interesting thing that I believe we all would agree on. When you have the same storm coming in your life, in other words, you say, I just went through this a year ago. Or why does this same thing keep on happening to me? It's a reoccurring category 2 storm. Keeps on coming back into your life. I've got a news flash for you. You haven't learned yet. You're facing the same situation because you haven't learned what to do with that life. In other words, that storm isn't there to torture you. That storm is there to grow you, to develop you. And if you don't get it, guess what you get to go do again? That same storm. Now, sometimes we say, my whole life is a storm. Amen? Matter of fact, my nickname is Stormy. What aren't you getting? What aren't you getting? Storms mold our character. It's not fun. I don't like storms. I don't like storms in my life. I want everything to go my way. Can everybody say amen? I want rose petals floating at my feet when I walk by. Not really. But we got to understand that category 2 storms are here for us to grow. Storms prepare you for the future. Remember last week I talked about how Jeremiah said that God has an end in mind for you, how God has plans for you. Part of God getting you to where He wants you to be, and that's more like Him. You got to go through storms so He can change you. I think of the trees that are shaken by the storms, how they sway, and how those dead branches get dropped off into my yard. How them old leaves that are now dead fall off my tree. And I think how God uses that storm to trim the tree. How He makes that tree, even though He is swaying the tree and the roots in the ground are literally being pulled, He sways it back. And that tree, actually through that Category 2 storm, becomes a stronger tree. I want to share with you today, my friends, God loves you. And if you're going through a Category 2 storm, you can feel the pain. And it's God's hand developing you. Not because He hates you, it's because He loves you. He wants to guide you. And if you go through that same storm time and time again, you got to back up and say, now wait a minute. What am I supposed to get out of this? Category 3. How many categories did I say we had? 4. That's doing good. Category 3. Winds. 111 mile an hour to 129 mile an hour. I'm going to tell you what, that'll give you a firm, amen? But that is some winds. And they say in a Category 3 storm, it's devastating damage. Wow. And I'm going to categorize this storm as a disobedient storm. Ooh. When I was a bad boy, rarely was that an occasion, my father would say things to me, wait till we get home. Man, I don't know what hurt worse, is that paddling I got or the anticipation of the paddle. I was so close to God on the way home. Oh, God, let my dad forgive me, said that. God never answered my prayer. Category 3 storm. Devastating damage. Brought on because we disobeyed God. These storms are caused by our bad behavior. Sometimes you may do something and you think you got away with it. But what you sow, you will what? Reap. Sometimes even when you say, God forgive me, and God forgives you, that natural seed is still going to grow corruption. Amen? I find this in the book of Jonah. Listen, verse 4. And the Lord sent out a great wind into the sea. There was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was like to be broken. Jonah was disobedient to God and brought that storm upon himself. So God, when we're disobedient, when we make up excuses that sound good to us, and only us, by the way, all right? I mean, if you ever say your excuses out loud, you see how silly they are. Can I have an amen? And you may talk till you're blue in the face, till you've exhausted all the oxygen in your lungs. Nobody buys it. Amen? But we convince ourselves. But in our disobedience, God says, I love you. You're going the wrong way. Don't go that way. I got a plan for you. I have an end pictured for you. I have thoughts directed towards you. Why are you going over there? Suddenly, you're in a Category 3 storm, and it's devastating. God's telling you to turn and go the other way. Category 4. Winds 130 to 156 mile an hour. That's almost as fast as my little Honda can go. That is fast. Could you imagine being in a ship like this and facing winds of 130 miles an hour? You better be close to God. I keep looking, is Jonah on here? Pull him over. Category 4 is catastrophic damage. Just imagine. What would cause this type of storm in our life? This is the tough one. And I gave it the worst storm I'm talking about today. And I call it the outside storm. I'm going to church. I'm serving God. I read. I pray. God reveals something about my character. I ask God to help me. I confess it. But still, a storm comes. Not a category 1 or 2 or 3, but a category 4. The worst of all storms. Something that is going to bring damage. This storm is brought due to others. Most difficult storm of all. There's a story in the Bible, and I can't go through the whole story, but it's Acts chapter 27. The Apostle Paul, the man that wrote most of the New Testament, not all of it, but many, many books, was put on a ship by others. He was their prisoner. And if you study Acts 27, you're going to find out that a storm came, destroyed the ship. Let me read this verse 22. And when neither sun nor stars it made days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, all hope that we should be saved was taken away. Boy, isn't that a statement for the category 4 storm? We could not see the stars or the sun for many days. And this was no small tempest. This was no small storm. And all hope was taken away. Do you see some devastation? Do you see some great need? I want to share with you, my friends, the wickedness of man. The outside storms can still affect us. Those are the hardest. Because we have this concept, if I do what is right, everything's going to go okay. If I live right and everything's right, everything's always going to go all right. But what happens when someone that is wicked in the world takes their free liberty and comes and destroys your world? Category 4. Or what happens when a disease, and I believe all diseases of the devil and a result of sinfulness, which goes back to the devil, comes and it sweeps into your world. You didn't do nothing to deserve it, but it hits you. Category 4. So, I want to share this with you as I paddle towards the shore of the sermon. You are coming out of a storm, or you are headed to a storm. Your storm will be a category 1, 2, 3, or 4. Be prepared. The storms bring reality. Reality. I have I don't even know what it's called, but you put your phone, we got it for our kids or grandkids or some relatives of ours. You put your phone in it, you play a video, and it looks like you're going scuba diving. And you watch your phone, and the way it looks like you're right in there. What's it called? Virtual reality. That don't make no sense, because it's not virtual. It's not really reality. Oh, I mean, I can jump from mountaintop to mountaintop. You know, these lessons. I can do all kinds of things. And it appears that. And sometimes we live our life like that, and we sort of live in this little bubble. And suddenly something goes wrong, and we're so derailed by it. And I'm telling you today that the disciples followed Jesus in the boat. Jesus went to sleep. That's next week. And the disciples were there, and a storm came, and it was sinking the boat. I'll tell you, my friends, what does God want us to do with such reality as this? No fancy theological views of life is always going to be easy. They nailed Peter to the cross and hung him upside down. They took Paul outside the walls of Rome and cut off his head storms are threatening. Matthew 8:24 says, but he was asleep, and that's speaking of Jesus. And his disciples came to him and woke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. And they awake him, and said unto him, Master, carest thou not that we perish? Then if we look at Luke chapter 8, verse 24, and they came to him and woke him, and said, Master, we perish. I'm going to tell you what, my friends, when you're in the storm, you're thinking, can I make it through the storm? Amen? Can I stay married to this woman? Right? Can I stay married to this man? Can I keep this job? Can I make it through the struggle that I'm facing? And it's real to you. That's what there was with Jesus. It's amazing. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all say these two words. We perish. These aren't junior high boys. These are grown men. We perish. You ever feel like you're perishing? Mark tells it all. I think he unravels a little bit of what's actually happening in chapter 4, verse 38. With these words, listen. Master, carest thou not that we perish? Can I bring that down to Mike Thompson's level? Jesus, don't you care about what I'm going through right now? Jesus, can't you feel my pain? Can't you feel my hurt? Master, carest thou not that we perish? Am I just a fish in the barrel, the next one that something happened to? The lesson the disciples were supposed to have is found in Matthew chapter 8. So I want to find out what's the lesson. Jesus was asleep. The disciples felt they were perishing. What did God want them to learn? Listen to the words of Christ. Matthew 8:26. And he said unto them, now the storms are there. Why are ye fearful? O ye of little faith. The lesson is this. No matter what storm you're going through, that's an opportunity to show God, to show the world, to show yourself if you got faith in God. No matter how rough your storm is, that is an opportunity to say, I have faith in God. No matter how big the waves are coming and filling up your boat, and you can see the water line coming higher and higher to the top. No matter how big those waves are and how awesome they come and hit you and keep on coming and hit you, that's an opportunity for you to have faith in God. Can I have an amen? Amen. I tell you, the Bible says that there was a storm of the winds. The winds would come down over the mountaintops and just sweep down. Suddenly, an opportunity to have faith in God. So when Jesus asked these questions, he says, why are you fearful? Why are you fearful? He didn't say, don't be afraid. He said, why are you fearful? And then he says, ye of little faith. You know, they're thinking, why are you fearful? He's thinking, my goodness, the winds are 126 miles an hour. The waves are 10 foot high. Our boat is sinking. Why am I fearful? We're sinking. We're perishing. And Jesus says, why are you fearful? And then he answered it. You're fearful, but you don't have faith. He says, ye of little faith. So as I close today, I want you to know, some of you went through some tough storms. And some of you may be in a storm. Some of your storms may be public. Everybody knows your storm. Some of your storms may be private. It's deeper than your heart. And I'm going to tell you this. That storm is there for you to turn your heart to God and tell the world, no matter what happens, I got faith in God. Let's